In this video, we're going to have a look at the interface of LFO tool and also go through the graph section here and how to create our own custom LFO shapes. I've got a project in Logic. I've got LFO 2 actually running on some of the individual tracks, and I've also placed it on the master so we can easily hear what it's doing. At the moment, it's not doing anything because we don't have anything rooted. Okay, so let's start off looking at the interface. We'll go left to right. So in the top left-hand corner, we have the filter section can be switched on here, so we can choose different filter types from here. And that means LFO tool can actually work as a static filter as well. Really nice sounding filter. It's got a lot of the filter types that you might recognize from Serum as well. Can we have a MIDI section down here? Now later on in this video series, we're going to have a look at using LFO tool as a MIDI controlled effect. And when we do that, we'll go through these parameters. The graph section is in the center here. Now this allows us to create our own custom LFO shapes. Also choose from presets. We have within each instance of LFO tool multiple LFO shapes we can use, and we can actually decide to route different LFO shapes to different parameters. Now whenever you want to reinitialize LFO tool, you come to presets and then initialize here. Now down towards the bottom here, we have a few parameters that relate to our LFO shape, like the rate and swing, etc. Now we have a preset section, as I said before. Lots of different resets for LFO tool that people have programmed. Here we have the routing section. Now this allows us to use our custom LFO shape or one of the preset LFO shapes to affect cutoff, resonance, volume, pan, or one of the other filter parameters. We're going to go through that later. We also have a global depth control for the LFO. Now finally we have this little split section here. Now this allows us to assign our LFO shape to only affect parameters within a certain frequency range. For example, if we had a bass and a kick drum, we wanted to sidechain bass at a kick, then what we could do is decide to only sidechain the lower frequencies of the bass. In that case, whatever is highlighted blue here, in this case it's lower frequencies. That is where our LFO shape is going to be working. So if we had on the volume, for example, it would only affect the volume of the lower frequencies. Obviously, if this was switched on, we click on it. The opposite is true. So now it's only going to affect the higher frequencies. That crossover point is set using this slider here. Now something that's very useful in LFO tool is you can actually resize the window. I wish all plugins did that. So finally on the interface, you may notice that as I kind of rest my mouse over different parameters, this little help kind of option appears down here, which can tell you what the parameter does, which is very, very useful. Okay, so let's have a look at our graph area here and how to create your own custom LFO shapes. So at the moment, we've just got the initialized LFO shape, which looks like this. To create a point, you double click. You can then drag and move that point around. To delete that point, simply double click again on it. So if you make a point and then hold down Alt, you can actually snap that point to the grid up or down. Now the grid is set using this snap option here. So if we put that to 16 THz, it would be snapping to 16 THz. So you can really create intricate shapes that way. Now each point, which isn't a horizontal or vertical line, has curves that can be applied to it. And the curves are introduced by dragging on these hollow points that will appear up or down. That gives you kind of concave or convex curves. Okay, so finally on this, if we hold down Shift, we can create horizontal lines that can be dragged you and down. Now again, these relate to the snap option, so great for kind of transgate effects. Okay, so that's how we create our own shapes. Now for each instance of LFO tool, we have 12 different LFO shapes that we can create. Now why would you need 12 different LFO shapes? Well, if you see here, we actually have these number options here. Now these are choosing to route different LFO shapes to different parameters, so it means you don't have to have multiple LFO tools on the same track in order to affect the cutoff and the volume, for example. Now from this menu here, we have different presets we can choose, so let's leave that one as it is. For the second one, let's go and choose a saw down, and for the third one, we'll choose sidechain 6. Now we could decide to have the first one affect the cutoff. The second one affect the resonance. The third one affect the volume. Okay. Now we have a global rate for our LFO tool. But what we can also do is choose to say double the speed of one of the shapes, or we could have it. So that way you can choose to change the speed of one of the graphs without having to change the overall rate. Now once we have a shape we like, we can actually copy and paste it into a different slot. What we can also do is come here and save it. Okay, so there's the interface of LFO tool and how we go about creating our own custom LFO shapes. In the next video, we're going to go through the LFO controls which are located down here. Thanks for watching.